Jokic is the strongest center in the league today, and even the #1 player in the league in the perception of many fans. His offensive talent needs no further elaboration and is comparable to any Hall of Fame level center in NBA history. But in comparison, his defensive ability still has a lot of room for improvement. Few people use words like excellent in both offense and defense to describe him. But judging from his performance in recent seasons, there are fewer and fewer moments when he is targeted by small guards on the defensive end. Although his defensive ability is not top-notch, Jokic knows very well how to use his superb basketball IQ to protect himself on the defensive end. In this issue, let's talk about how Jokic has hidden himself on the defensive end in recent seasons and how he has contributed to the overall defense of the Nuggets in other ways. Before analyzing how Jokic hides himself on the defensive end, we need to know what Jokic's main weakness on the defensive end is. Look at the first bad defensive clip. The Grizzlies clear out the strong side. Morant and Adams set a pick and roll at 45 degrees. Jokic's position is neither up nor down, which is very awkward. Adams' screen quality is very high. Even though Bruce Brown has a strong ability to fight through screens, it is still very difficult to get through. So Morant easily breaks into the restricted area. It can be seen that Jokic's defense at this time is wanting to do more but unable. Not only can he not keep up with Morant, but in the end, he didn't even stretch out his hand. So Morant makes a floater. As for why Jokic has such a bad defensive habit, it will be explained at the end of the video. Let's look at the second bad defensive clip. This time it's Dillon Brooks and Adams setting a pick and roll. Dillon's breakthrough speed is far inferior to Morant's, but Jokic needs to take care of Adams, who rolls to the basket. Although Adams' ball handling ability is average, his ability to finish dunks is good, and he also has a stable close-range floater. In a short time, Jokic is actually defending two people at once. This is undoubtedly a torture for him. If the rolling center has no offensive threat, then Jokic can return to defend under the basket without any concerns. If there is one, then in the process of dropping back, he must take care of the rolling center because the help defense from the weak side cannot always come in time every time. Or if this rolling center also has the ability to handle the ball a second time, it means that the defender on the low post needs to make a choice between defending the corner three-pointer and defending the two-pointer under the basket. Here is the third bad defensive clip. We can see that Morant raised the pick-and-roll position. Jokic defended up and formed a certain degree of topside double-team on Morant. But a ball handler of Morant's level is not afraid at all. With absolute speed advantage, he passes through the gap between people. Jeff Green in the corner came to help defend too late. Morant directly threw an alley-oop. The higher the pick-and-roll position, the longer the running distance back to defend under the basket for a big center with slow movement speed. The ball handler will have sufficient space to complete the breakthrough. Even if the early strong delay can force the ball handler to pass the ball, but in the face of elite pick-and-roll players, Jokic's delay quality is a bit lacking. So if the opponent's high pick-and-roll is of this quality, Jokic can't defend it at all by normal defense. Whether it's topside delay, double-teaming or decisive dropping back, it's not very effective. So what should we do? Jokic can't just go and rest because he can't defend the pick-and-roll normally, right? The answer is, team defense can make up for the defects of individual defense, especially for the core players on the team. Because they themselves need to undertake a large amount of tough offensive tasks, it is almost necessary for the coach to formulate an appropriate team defense strategy to reduce the physical consumption of core players. Therefore, in this game, Coach Mike Malone arranged a large number of 1-2-2 zone defenses later. The core idea is to prevent Morant from taking advantage of Jokic's weakness in being unable to defend pick-and-rolls and breaking through the Nuggets' defense, so as to easily break into the restricted area or break through and pass to the outside to find open three-point opportunities. Look at this defensive clip. There are 3 Nuggets players standing at the free throw line position, 2 below the free throw line, and Jokic is standing at the low post on the left side. In this way, the number of Nuggets players on the top is the same as that of the Grizzlies. No matter which side Morant initiates the pick and roll from, the defender at 45 degrees will come over to delay or double team in advance. Morant saw that Braun had come in front of him, and Bruce Brown on the side was desperately fighting through the screen. If he forced his way through again, he would definitely be stuck in an awkward dead ball situation inside the restricted area, so he could only pass to the weak side corner. But the pick and roll on the strong side did not pose a threat at all. Pope and Jokic on the weak side always stood at their original defensive positions. As long as their attention was concentrated enough, intercepting such a long-range pass is not difficult. It seems that Jokic here is being protected and his participation in defense is not high, but this is exactly the result the Nuggets want. It not only restricts the opponent's offense but also Jokic is not targeted by the ball handler, and there is almost no consumption of physical energy. Let's look at this defensive clip. It is also a 1-2-2 zone defense stance. Jokic comes to the right elbow area this time, which is the position of Bron in the previous defensive round. After the pick and roll between Morant and Adams occurs, mainly Bron repeatedly fights through the screen and disrupts Morant's offensive rhythm. When Morant finds the right time and is ready to accelerate and break into the restricted area, Gordon on the left elbow area quickly comes to help defend, and Bron interferes from behind. At this time, Jokic only needs to focus his defensive attention on Adams alone, who is rolling to the basket. The defensive pressure is greatly reduced. Morant, who is forced to stop, doesn't have a good passing option. His forced floater misses. In addition, there is a very common strategy for the Nuggets to protect Jokic. After switching defenses on a pick and roll, they directly double-team the ball handler. Then Jokic quickly finds his own matchup again. For example, in the following defensive clip. At the 45 degrees on the strong side, Jalen Johnson and Bogdan do a handoff, and then after setting a pick and roll with Capella, Jokic is switched to defend. If Capella rolls to the basket, Porter will defend him. But Capella has little threat in the low post. So for this ball, Bogdan is definitely inclined to play small versus big on the perimeter rather than passing to Capella for a big versus small in the low post. Here's the key point. After Pope sees Jokic switching to defend Bogdan, he directly leaves Jalen Johnson open and goes to the top of the arc to double-team Bogdan with Jokic. Before the double team is formed, the latter decisively passes the ball to Jalen Johnson, who is open at 45 degrees. At this time, Jokic has already returned to the restricted area to defend Capella. Porter then tries his best to defend the three-pointer. Finally, they defend successfully. It is worth mentioning that last season, Jalen Johnson's three-point shooting percentage at the 45 degrees on the right side was the lowest, only 28.1%. So even if Porter doesn't go to defend, he may not be able to take this open shot. On the contrary, this is the Nuggets' targeted defensive strategy, using the opponent's weaknesses to cover up Jokic's own weaknesses. Different from the above one where they double-team the ball handler after the pick and roll and then switch back to their matchups. The following defensive clip is to switch defenses in advance to prevent the pick and roll from happening. Curry dribbles the ball up the court and wants to use a high pick and roll to target Jokic's mismatch. And Jokic has already sensed that he is about to be targeted, so he signals Murray to switch defenses in advance. In this way, Curry's initiation of the pick and roll loses its tactical targeting significance. Later, Curry calls for Paul's screen again. Jokic is very smart. He knows that Curry initiates the pick and roll near the sideline, so he adopts the ICE strategy. Here is a brief explanation of ICE. That is, let the smaller defender force the ball handler towards the sideline. After the pick and roll is initiated, the big man stands in front of the ball handler to prevent an attack on the restricted area. Then the smaller defender who is blocked tries hard to chase and defend. So here, Jokic forces Curry to the sideline. After Curry is forced to pass the ball, Jokic quickly returns to the restricted area again to prevent an alley-oop. Of course, Jokic doesn't always go to a very high position to delay on every pick and roll. Instead, he will judge based on the position where the ball handler initiates the pick and roll and the ball handling ability. For a top ball handler like Curry, Jokic will generally choose a more aggressive move up. Once he finds that the pick and roll position is near the sideline, he will resolutely rush out and use IC to force the ball handler to stop or pass the ball. After the pick and roll, Jokic does a really good job in targeted defense against the ball handler. For example, in the following defensive clip. At the 45 degrees on the strong side, Edwards and Gobert set a pick and roll. Jokic drops back because he knows that Edwards' ability to shoot three-pointers while holding the ball is average. As it turns out, the quality of Gobert's screen is also average. Edwards doesn't get enough shooting space at the first time. He continues to break into the restricted area. The rolling Gobert is delayed by Justin Holiday. Jokic always gives Edwards half a step, firmly defends against the breakthrough, and provides timely interference at the free throw line position. Later, Porter is chasing. Edwards passes to Reed in the right corner. Justin Holiday, who came over to help defend Gobert just now, is shaken off by Reed. Reed directly attacks the rim with the ball. And Jokic leans on his weight advantage under the basket to push aside Gobert and completes a high-quality rim protection. And there is this defensive clip. At the 45 degrees on the strong side, Conley first uses Towns' screen and then sets a pick and roll with Gobert at the top of the arc. Pope is chasing from behind. Gobert quickly rolls to the basket. At the moment Conley stops dribbling, Jokic has already judged that he is going to pass to Gobert, who is rolling to the basket to attack the rim, so he directly intercepts Conley's bounce pass. In fact, Jokic can also directly defend against small guards. Yes, you heard it right. Last season, the Nuggets had many such strange matchups, reversely using the opponent's pick-and-roll strategy targeting Jokic to provide more options for subsequent overall defense. For example, these two clips below. In the Warriors' half-court offense, Jokic is matched up against Paul at the top of the arc. Who is Jokic's normal matchup? It's Saric. The key point is here. Nowadays, Paul can indeed still target Jokic, but he cannot guarantee efficiency. Moreover, Paul's three-point shooting while holding the ball is far less threatening than Saric's three-point shooting after catching the ball. Saric's movement speed is definitely better than Jokic's. Jokic will find it very difficult to keep up with him. In this case, it's better to let Jokic directly defend against Paul, who has weaker attacking ability, and leave Saric, who is good at running without the ball and catching and shooting, to his teammates. The others on the Nuggets can switch defenses freely. Another relatively key point is that when Curry uses pick and roll to target Jokic, the screen quality that Paul can provide is very poor. He can only pop out and cannot roll to the basket, reducing the pick and roll threat by half. After switching defenses, the Nuggets can directly double-team Curry to avoid Jokic being singled out by Curry. In general, although Jokic's rim protection and movement speed are average, his top-notch delay level, positive defensive choices, and excellent predictive interception ability are enough for him to deal with the vast majority of pick-and-rolls in the league. Moreover, Jokic's low-post defense is definitely top-notch in the league. Considering various defensive indicators, Jokic is at least a defender above the average level among centers, far from being as vulnerable as we might think. Even in extremely targeted situations, the Nuggets' excellent overall defense can protect Jokic. For example, Pope, a master at fighting through screens. Pope's defensive flexibility is actually not good, so he has never been able to make it into the best defensive team. But he is very suitable for protecting Jokic and can tangle with the vast majority of ball handlers in the league during pick and rolls. In this way, the scenes where Jokic directly faces the opponent's small guards will be greatly reduced. It's just a pity that Pope won't be on the Nuggets next season. At that time, it can also be continuously observed whether Jokic's defensive effect will be affected. Finally, let's explain the question at the beginning of the video. Why is Jokic unwilling to stretch out his hand under the basket to interfere with the breaking guard? First, his bounce speed is indeed not good. Even if he tries his best to defend, the effect is probably not very good, and at the same time, it will consume a lot of physical energy. Second, not stretching out his hand can avoid getting into foul trouble. When the opponent sees Jokic stretching out his hand, there is a high probability that they will stick close to him to complete the finish. Even if this shot doesn't go in, once Jokic is fouled, it will be a loss. After all, when Jokic is on the court and when he is off the court, the Nuggets are completely two different teams. Third, once the opponent misses, Jokic can grab the rebound immediately and push for a fast break counterattack. So his defensive rebound data is particularly good. At this time, whether he dribbles across the half-court by himself or makes a long pass like a quarterback is very threatening. In other words, Jokic's not defending is only reflected in the opponent's final finish under the basket. But that abandonment at that moment is strategic and is actually more beneficial than harmful to the team's tactics or offense. As long as Jokic can stay on the court without being troubled by fouls, the Nuggets will always have hope of winning.